Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Construction Specifiers DemoCast on DensDeck Prime Roof Board by Georgia Pacific. My name is Nitya, and I'll be moderating today's presentation. Before I introduce the speaker, please note your mics are muted. It would be best if you turn on the speaker view. That said, if you have any questions for our speaker, feel free to post them in the Q&A forum. We will address as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. If you have any connectivity or Zoom-related questions, you can use the chat feature to communicate with us, and we'll do our best to help you. Today's presentation is being recorded. It will be available on the Construction Specifiers website, so you can access it whenever you need to. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Glenn Miller, CSI, RCI, CDT, Lead GA, is Commercial Roofing Sales Manager at Georgia Pacific. In today's presentation, Glenn will explain Georgia Pacific's DensDeck Prime Roof Board. With that, I'll turn things over to Glenn.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Nithya. As we said, today's presentation on why do we use rigid gypsum cover boards in commercial roofing systems. So with that being said, let's first look that this is a copyrighted presentation by Georgia Pacific. So why do we mean cover boards, and what do we mean when we say the term cover board? Well, a good definition is from the Canadian Cover Board Consortium, which defines a cover board as a rigid material in a compact roof assembly that enhances resiliency and durability. It's usually installed below the membrane and above the insulation to minimize the deterioration of other components during the service life of the roof. While this is a good basic definition, you'll find in today's presentation that a cover board provides a lot more benefits and adds value to every roof assembly. So let's get started. The fact is, there are many benefits to specifying a cover board in a roof assembly, which brings value to both the owner and its occupants. With the inclusion of a cover board, one of the things that you will do is preserve the roof assembly. The insulation is the most expensive component in a roof assembly and is the most costly to repair. A cover board will help protect the insulation by adding a strong material on top of it, protecting the insulation from puncture, moisture, and compression from foot traffic and rooftop equipment. Each time a polyiso closed cell is stepped upon or punctured, its thermal resistance is lessened. Cover boards help mitigate that risk. Secondly, inclusion of a cover board helps avoid interior damage from leaks. Without a cover board, the roof membrane may buckle from foot traffic or the weight of equipment, while a dropped tool by maintenance workers may puncture the membrane, which causes damaging leaks to occur. Third, a cover board in the system helps guard occupants' assets. There's tremendous investment of equipment and materials in commercial buildings these days, especially data centers, hospitals, and retail services. Building owners and tenants expect these things to be protected. Cover boards increase a roof assembly's resistance to adverse conditions like these. And fourth, cover boards will protect the building occupants' health. Occupants' health is a big concern these days. Without proper roof assembly protection, wet building materials can lead to mold and bacteria growth, which can cause poor indoor air quality and other health issues. Including a rigid cover board will help resist puncture and moisture intrusion and help avoid mold development altogether. And finally, the inclusion of a cover board can create usable rooftop development. Savvy investors today know that additional revenue generating opportunities are there by providing usable space on their roofs. Rooftop gardens, entertainment venues, solar paneling, all of those can give an investor a competitive advantage to attract occupants. Rigid cover boards provide the compressive strength necessary to support the extra weight on rooftop public spaces. Now let's look at how cover boards mitigate risk from some common adverse conditions. The first we'll look at is moisture. Market research conducted by Ducker Worldwide in 2016 tells us three things. First, that roofing consultants ranked moisture as the second most damaging issue with commercial roofs. Roofing contractors ranked moisture as the most destructive event in a commercial roof assembly. And general contractors surveyed estimated that 18% of all single-ply assemblies experienced moisture-related damage within the first year, and that up to 50% of single-ply assemblies after 10 years. The bottom line is this, is that moisture performance in roofing components matters. Now let's look at 3 ways moisture can enter into a roof assembly. One way it can enter in is it can be introduced during construction. Since roof construction is completed outdoors and the weather conditions can't be controlled, a contractor may need to work under damp conditions to satisfy construction schedules or protect the building's interior. In these instances, rain and dew may become trapped and retained in roofing materials. Secondly, it can enter in through roof leaks. Even the smallest penetration in a roof, whether from a drop tool, foot traffic, or hail, allows water to enter the roof assembly. And third, moisture can develop in the roof assembly from condensation. Not only do roofing products get wet from the outside from rain and leaks in the membrane, but also from condensating water vapor from inside the building. When high humidity indoor air meets the cooler underside of the roof membrane, the water vapor reaches the dew point and condenses to a liquid. The picture here is an example of cellulose fiber product that has been exposed to condensation. The board has simply turned into wet pulp and with potential signs of mold. Surface water absorption is critical to the performance of roofing components. When surface water is allowed to be absorbed into the core of a product, it will often deteriorate the material, causing the product to lose its structural integrity as well as finding its way to other roofing components in the assembly. The product standard that fiberglass-faced gypsum-based cover boards subscribe to is ASTM C1177, where the maximum water absorption rate is 10% of the initial weight of the product, and the surface water absorption is no more than 2 grams. But there is one gypsum cover board that's products to be twice as moisture resistant as the standard. DensDeck Prime with EONIC Technology. After listening to what contractors, consultants, and building owners shared about their growing concerns over moisture damage in roof assemblies, Georgia Pacific DensDeck set out to develop technology that would develop the water absorption rate to a maximum 5% and surface water absorption to a maximum 1 gram. These new performance standards are twice as moisture resistant as the standard found in ASTM C1177. EONIC Technology is not a new product, but it is an enhancement to our existing DensDeck Prime product. All DensDeck Prime products are manufactured now with EONIC Technology. If DensDeck Prime is currently in your specification, now would be a good time to update the name to DensDeck Prime with EONIC Technology, and or cite the 2 performance criteria, which again are 5% maximum water absorption rate and 1 gram maximum surface water absorption. If you would like to use our guide spec, you may find that at www.densdeck.com. You know, other common cover boards used in the industry fall short of moisture resistance when compared to DensDeck Prime with EONIC Technology. Gypsum fiber board, for instance, the one with cellulose in its name and in its core, absorbed 132% more than DensDeck EONIC Technology, and an alternate coated glass mat gypsum board absorbed 76% more water. As far as the surface water absorption, gypsum fiberboard absorbed 2.3 times more water by volume, and the alternative coated glass mat product absorbed 4 times as much. Additionally, in addition to these tests, EONIC Technology improved the vertical pull strength, where compared to gypsum fiberboard, DensDeck's face was 74% stronger and DensDeck back was 14% stronger. Similarly, compared to the alternative glass mat gypsum product, DensDeck's face was 154% stronger and DensDeck back was over 6 times stronger. Fire is another critical element that can destroy a roof and the entire building. There are many ways fire can damage the building envelope, but for today's purposes, we'll look specifically at sources of fire threatening the roof area, either from outside sources onto the roof, from items or equipment on the roof, or from fire below the roof. Regardless of the fire source, gypsum board offers natural inherent resistance to fire. Gypsum-based roof cover boards help protect the roof from fire better than other cover boards because they're non-combustible, since the main component in gypsum boards is the organic mineral gypsum, or calcium sulfate dihydrate. You will note that from this compound, gypsum is made up of 2 water molecules to 1 calcium sulfate. When fire reaches as much as 600 degrees, a process called calcining begins, where the water molecules begin to flash off. At 2200 degrees, water molecules are dissipated, leaving just a fine powder. But as the water molecules release, they meet the fire, which produces steam and helps to protect the other components in the system, allowing them to maintain their integrity longer and often saving the structure. As a non-combustible product, gypsum cover board may also prohibit the fire from progressing further into the system or into the building. Fire resistance in a roofing system comes from all components working together, and the choice of a cover board can either enhance or detract from its fire resistance. Where the decking, insulation, or membrane may be combustible, a non-combustible cover board can contribute to a better fire rating. It's also important to consider the flame spread rating of each component. Many cover boards on the market today are combustible and have significant flame spreads and develop considerable smoke if ignited. These combustible products often produce toxic gases, which harm not only the environment, but may cause harm or even death to individuals if inhaled. There are 2 predominant fire testing bodies in the United States governing fire issues, such as external and internal exposure, code compliance, life safety issues, and insurance premiums. Those are Underwriters Laboratory and Factory Mutual. UL is prominently focused on life safety issues. That's why you see UL ratings as 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, and so on. That's the time an assembly or structure will maintain its structural integrity while lives may be rescued. FM, on the other hand, is an insurance company and is primarily focused on the property itself. Both of these testing agencies perform tests to discover a product or assembly's resistance to external and internal fires, compliance, life safety, and will often be used to set insurance premiums. UL 790 is the test for external fire sources. Assemblies are then classified as A, meaning severe, B, moderate, and C, light. FM has different classifications for fire resistance in roof assemblies using class 1, 2, and 3. Class 1 is the most stringent and must pass a series of tests, including internal and external fire, wind uplift, foot traffic, corrosion resistance, impact resistance, and susceptibility to heat damage. Here are 5 ways in which DensDeck, a gypsum-based cover board, may defend against fire. First, by containment. By adding DensDeck as a thermal barrier direct to the deck beneath the insulation, it helps resist fire from within the building and helps mitigate the risk of spreading to other parts of the building. More importantly, it helps keep the other materials in the roof assembly from adding fuel to the fire, so to speak. Secondly, DensDeck defends against fire by providing deflection. Installing DensDeck as a cover board beneath the membrane helps to keep embers from airborne neighboring flames from landing and igniting the roof. The third reason is that DensDeck provides built-in water support. DensDeck roof boards are made from both gypsum and fiberglass, both which are non-combustible materials. Moreover, gypsum board is approximately 21% chemically combined water and provides a natural fire protection from its very core. Being a gypsum cover board, DensDeck is non-combustible. DensDeck products are classified as non-combustible in accordance to ASTM E136. Comparingly, a gypsum fiber board, whose name sounds familiar, are not classified as non-combustible because they contain cellulose fibers in their core from sources like tree bark, wood, and plant leaves, all which are combustible. And lastly, DensDeck, if in a fire situation, produces fewer toxic fumes than other cover boards like fiberboard and HDI, which can produce unhealthy toxic smoke when ignited. DensDeck has a 0 flame spread and a 0 smoke developed rating. Of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention wind. Roof damage from wind is something that is prevalent in all areas and is even more stringent along coastlines or open plain states. Coverboards help the roof assembly to stay intact against both negative and positive pressure placed upon a roof. Coverboards help lessen the risk associated with wind damage by several ways. One of those is membrane support. Coverboards provide a sturdy and solid surface for the membrane to be adhered to properly, allowing it to maintain its integrity despite most wind uplift events. Secondly, it helps sustain structural integrity. Coverboards provide additional compressive strength to the roof system, allowing the system to better withstand wind pressure. Third, it lessens damage from moisture after a wind event. Coverboards protect the insulation and roof assembly from flying debris, which could puncture the membrane and insulation, thus allowing subsequent moisture to infiltrate the system and the building. And fourth, it retains integrity under pressure. A solid coverboard with a proper compressive strength will help hold the membrane and its components in place by providing support to the fasteners and optimal adhesion using adhesives. The coverboard in this situation is protecting the insulation of the roof from positive pressures coming up from the roof. Essentially, with the coverboard as a protective barrier to the outer elements, it also creates a much more rigid span across the roof, allowing for a stronger resistance to wind uplift from positive pressure coming from the inside of the building. The coverboard in this scenario provides integrity to the roof assembly by protecting the fastener from wiggling out of the insulation. As negative pressure seeks to suck the membrane off the assembly, it adds pressure to the fasteners. The coverboard helps the fasteners keep their integrity in keeping the entire membrane attached to the deck. In the examples pictured here, there was not much roof damage to the buildings because of the use of coverboards. There was a lot of damage in Florida from Irma, but not roof damage. Wind can pose several risks to flat roofs. Flying debris can puncture and tear the roof material off, allowing wind to get under and into the roofing system. Once exposed, uplift and wind force can then tear roofing materials away. Coverboards help maintain the roof's integrity, adding an additional level of protection under the membrane and a rigid base of support to ensure the assembly remains intact. And last but not least, we'll look at hail. While moderate hail zones encompass much of the east and west coast, severe and very severe hail zones are relegated to the central part of the U.S. Severe hail zones cover most of the Midwest and South, while very severe hail zones are found along the Front Range of Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, the Dakotas, and Texas. FM Global tests roof systems for moderate and severe hail impact resistance based on how well they withstand the impact of a 2-inch diameter steel ball dropped from either 81 inches for moderate hail, 141.5 inches for severe hail. In doing so, this reflects impact energies of 8 foot-pounds for moderate hail and 14 foot-pounds for severe hail to the surface of the test specimen. The new Very Severe Hail Standard in FM Property Loss Prevention Data Sheet 1-34 uses an ice launcher to propel a 2-inch diameter laboratory-made ice ball at 152 to 160 feet per second. This applies impact energy of 53 to 58 foot-pounds of force. This means that VSH assemblies must withstand 4 times the energy of SH-rated assemblies. The compressive strength of most polyisocyanurate insulation is only 15 pounds PSF or less, taking only a 1-inch hailstone to fracture. Coverboards like HDISO and 1/4-inch gypsum fiber boards can withstand a 1.5-inch hailstone, but 1/4-inch DensDeck Prime can withstand up to 2-inch hailstones and protect the polyiso insulation from fracturing. Thicker DensDeck products will perform even better than that. FM VSH approved assemblies and systems for single-ply systems have traditionally included primarily OSB and plywood as a coverboard until now. Coming soon, DensDeck Prime is building on its legacy by innovating on impact resistance and strength to bring to the market DensDeck Storm X primed roof board, the first gypsum cover board to gain FM approval in single ply TPO VSH systems with 60 mil bareback membrane. More to come about this new VSH product during part 2 of this webinar, coming January 20th with Construction Specifier. Keep an eye out for information and a link to register in follow-up communication. To summarize, the inclusion of a rigid cover board in a low-slope commercial roof system will extend the life of a roof system and provide protection against hail, foot traffic, wind, fire, moisture, and puncture. This concludes today's presentation, and I believe we have some time for some questions. And with that, I'd like to introduce Michael Coronin, our Director of Product Management for Commercial Roofing, to join me.
Thank you, Glenn and Michael. Welcome. As Glenn mentioned, we have some time for questions now. So if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A section, and I will ask our speakers to address them. Glenn, the first question is this. What other elements play a role in extending the lifespan of a commercial roofing system, and how does a rigid gypsum cover board contribute to the same?
Thank you, Nithya. And that's a good question. Of course, we covered a lot of this in the presentation, but several ways in which a gypsum-based roof cover board enhances the life system is that by providing protection, the cost of maintenance, operation and maintenance per year will be less because there will be less instances of OEM events that need to be taken care of. So if you have less events and it's protecting the board, you're actually going to see the life of a roof system, an average roof system, extend from 20 years to 24 years. So it's going to extend that. And then those costs, those annual costs, since you're having less per year, they will be extrapolated over 24 years instead of 20 years. So you're getting, in a lifetime of a system, you're reducing the cost of operation and maintenance.
Thank you, Glenn. And the next question, as demands and environmental factors seem to be evolving, have any other factors led to the recommended use of a gypsum cover board?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we spoke a little bit about, you know, the enhancement of a gypsum-based cover board being a rigid cover board to combat hail and wind. But in addition to that, some of the things that we see not only from environmental, but also from design innovations, we will see that a rigid cover board is recommended in photovoltaic systems because it gives that integrity to the entire roof system, and also in green roof systems or vegetative roof systems, where you're placing a lot of heavy and very intricate components. You want to make sure that you have all the protection to the roof deck and to the building, because the last thing you want to do in either one of those situations is have to tear off that equipment or that greenery or anything like that in order to repair the roof.
That's correct. I'm just going to wait and see if we get any more questions. I'm just going to give them like 30 seconds. Let's see.
Glenn did such a good job. There's no questions.
It looks like that. I mean, the presentation was comprehensive, so I wouldn't talk that. Well, it looks like we don't have any. There is a raised hand. Hold on a second. I'm just going to see who's raising a hand over here. Lou Garcia has his hand up. Lou, do you want to, type out? What do you want? Is there some? Can we help you with something? He has a hand up. Lou Garcia. I don't see any question though. Well, yes. Okay. So Lou's question is this. He has a question in reference to using DensDeck for residential use. His question is, can it be used under the floor joist at a crawl space where we have a high food area?
Michael, I'm going to let you, since you're on board, let you have some time here to answer a question.
Yeah, I think we would need a little bit more information. Residential applications are uncommon with this product, just based on the performance and just based on the testing and the performance that it provides. In the application that you're referring to, there's the potential for an application there. We would need more information in order to answer that more accurately. So if you could follow up with us after this, we'd be happy to try and help you.
Okay, thank you. Well, it seems that's all the questions that we had. I'd like to thank you, Glenn and Michael, for joining us today and explaining Georgia Pacific's DensDeck Prime roof board. A recording of the DemoCast will be available 1 week from now. We will also send a link to the recording via email to all registrants. Thanks to everyone who attended. Before you go, please take a few minutes to give us your feedback by completing our survey. It should appear in your browser after you close Zoom. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.